Everybody, wait a minute.
And during the few moments that we have left, we want to have just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me, us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Once you are enslaved and once you are in servitude, you have no moral obligation to the people who have enslaved you. In enslaving you, they have freed you of all moral obligation because the nature of their enslavement of you says that you are without humanity, without manhood, without womanhood, without dignity. And anything you do to get those things back is morally justified.
The struggle for survival in the United States is the handling of this never-ending tension between the institutional values of race, gender, and wealth, which give undue and unearned privileges and advantages to some, so that others cannot compete on an equal basis for the resources of this country.
Our people have resisted for 413 years in this wilderness, and they resisted for this generation to carry out what must be done. We cannot fail our ancestors.
There's already so much evidence that we are waking up, beginning to acknowledge the reality. Something stinks.
And we are going to have to fight, we're going to have to struggle, we're going to have to struggle religiously to bring it back to peace, because the people that we need to be, they are such a regular warmongers, and they don't even understand what peace means. So we've got to fight them, we've got to struggle in the big understand what peace means.
Everybody knows all the people don't have liberty, all the people don't have freedom, all the people don't have justice, all the people don't have power. That means none of us do. Take this country and change it. Turn it upside down and put the last first and the first last.
The preservation of history is a primary responsibility of any people.
There is only one answer, only one answer. Revolution. For revolution.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Can you dig it?
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Yes, yes, yes. What's up, world? Welcome back to I Mix What I Like live right here on Black Liberation Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Happy to be your host. Please do all the things. Support the platform however you can. You know what? Speaking of support, I just got my mail. And I forget how long. I mean, I've been getting these for so long, but just as speaking of supporting free all political prisoners and Mumia Abu Jamal, just got my prison radio sort of update. Prison radio is a vital avenue for incarcerated individuals to express themselves, tell their stories, and lead the movement towards a world without prisons. So salute to prison radio. And you know what else I got here too? For the next governor of Maryland, Andy Ellis, billionaires own both parties. Vote green. But what's up, everybody? Happy belated birthday to Kwame Ture, of course. We will talk a little bit more about him and continue just in perpetuity. It's kind of like not a big deal to me in the sense that folks like him are constantly involved, as you saw there, in has been part of my own introductions for, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years, I don't know. So is that what we doing this morning? We taking shots? We taking shots at the follically challenged? Really? On a day we commemorating Fanon and Lumumba and Kwame Ture, that's what we doing? If we getting laughs? Shame. Exactly, James. What y'all gonna do with me when I act up? I don't know what the context of that was, but you know. Not the follically challenged jokes. Oh, shame. So, but please also go back and check Sundays with Ear Doctor, Saturdays with Renee, Darker Than Blue. I think broke the internet Friday. So make sure you check that as well. Do all the things, get you some of this. I'm about to buy up another round. Get you some swag, including the bucket hats. Where is it at over here? Where is it at? Right there. Bucket hats. Oh, it's a reference to no jails. Word. Okay. Got you. So anyway, all right, let's get into, we gotta to be honest, I don't know. I think later we're gonna have some special guests still, maybe. I'm not sure. But I'm going to owe some apologies. I've already had to apologize to some other folks. I've been a little scatterbrained lately. Today is the deadline for my book chapter, the final deadline. So I've been making these little bits of tweaks, but the feedback was so favorable. It's almost uncomfortably favorable, but still making these little, and submit my grades for my summer course today, and then really get ready to enjoy a little summertime for real over the next few weeks as we continue this commemorative series and other work. Please, if you can, check out the Real Footballs Around conversation we had yesterday. Claudia O'Brien showed up, talk a little bit about the Black Alliance for Peace statement that was dropped today regarding FIFA and the Olympic Committee banning Israel, as they should, calling on them to do it, given their history of banning Russia, banning at one point in time South Africa, banning, who else I forgot got referenced. So checked out BAP's statement on that. Our conversation, it devolved into a nice a nice little debate that is still ongoing in our WhatsApp. And July 13th is, I think, when will be the return of the next gathering of what we're now calling Real Footballs Around crew. So do all of those things. Moose's discussion on Saturdays with Renee, I've already worked into my household discussions with my children around Beyonce and the Buffalo Soldier. We had a nice discussion, and I said, like Musa said, and then I admonished my children, like I do everybody. Are you telling me you don't watch my show? Are you telling me you don't watch Saturdays with Renee? My own loved ones don't have it in their immediate media diet. Shh. Children just don't respect their elders anymore. It's a shame. It's a shame. But if you need, as my godfather used to say of his work on the radio, to give you something to talk about at the water cooler to prepare you, if you need some intellectual prep and self-defense against the Bay Hive, or for the loved ones who are enamored with Beyonce to the point that they're missing what's going on with that Buffalo Soldier nonsense she was pulling, check out Moose's discussion. They give you some helpful intellectual tips. Yup. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I got a number of things to play. I'm going to start with a conversation, an interview I did a couple weeks ago at this point about the secret agreement between Lumumba and Nkrumah with Baba's brother Zizwe. And then we're going to take a look at something we reference in that discussion from Brother Shaka Ra. And then we're going to get into this great Black Agenda Report article from a couple weeks ago and talk a little bit more about Kwame Ture and how the world continues to conspire against the politics we are advocating here. All right. And then and we're going to get back into a little bit, I think, dip our toes back into because of what Galtong. So for this book chapter, I was encouraged to go back and read Johann Galtong's essay on peace and structural violence, and he's got this little what I think is a bar in there about immediately relatable to my argument here. Galtong points importantly to the invisibility of the violence embedded so structurally as to be beyond perception, a violence that is silent and that does not show, but may be seen as about as natural as the air around us, noticeable only as the tranquil waters disturbed by more personal forms of direct violence. So we don't see the tranquil waters of the dominant narratives and the frames and the propaganda because they're tranquil. And we don't see those tranquil waters as structurally violent, resulting in all of this massive inequality. But it's only when somebody gets punched in the face that they say, oh, it's personal violence. It's violent. You're so violent. Why would you do that? Where did that come from? I do hear McLuhan in there, and that's why I made the reference in my summary to the beyond perception. I feel like Galtong was reading or listening to McLuhan, because that's what McLuhan is saying. And then somebody punches you in the mouth and pop, get caught. And you're like, whoa, what happened? Yeah. All right, so we're just gonna pick up this interview here, let it run. It's great, very enjoyable. Get your coffee, and it tastes so much better in these mugs that you can get at blackliberationmedia.org. Yeah. Yep. Tastes so much better. uh and enjoy this discussion. Then we'll be back, and as I said, get back to some of the other elements uh from this morning. So let's pick this up here.
Well, I'm a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party and the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde.
Mhm.
I was a part of the ceremony at the end of our party Congress in January 2023, in which we became official members of the PAIGC. And I have my own membership card, and they gave us the Cabral hat
Oh,
and a
right on.
shawl as a
Oh,
part of that
wow.
process. So I was lucky enough to um, be recruited into the All African People's Revolutionary Party in my first year of college. And I've been involved ever since, back in 1973. And so I'm so happy to be a part of this organization and a part of this movement. And I'm just happy to learn. I love learning. I'm a member of a cadre circle of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And so that's me, basically. I was a product of the Black Power movement. All that stuff affected my life, and which led me to, in my early years, I was already very much radical. When I was 8 years old, I didn't agree with. They asked us to cry for John F. Kennedy when he was assassinated. I refused to cry. I refused to be a part of that stuff. I was rebelling because when I was in school in '63, I witnessed the
Sorry everybody, I'm not sure what. That sucks. That sucks. All right. I wasn't ready for that. I thought, sorry about that. I'm not sure why I wasn't able. Let me try it. You know what? I'm going to try it in a different way here before we give up on that. Cause, um, but, yeah, I'm not sure what. So let's try it this way. Local video. And then we got to go to the archives. And then, so I apologize for that, but that's Baba Zizwe Chajuka, who is a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And whose interview is now, the full interview is up. I'll put the link, but I did, you know, not really sure why we have to have all these problems with these platforms here. So I'm going to try another way real quick if I can get this other thing to happen, and if not, we'll just move on, and I'll try to play. So does that mean I won't be able to play the other video either? That's no good. And I admit it's a little frustrating because you can't do much to test it in advance other than to make sure you have everything set up. And now it's taking a while for this other thing to set itself up. So, but nonetheless, we will continue on and hopefully. And now my feed is lagging. Oh wow. Yeah. Oh wow. Now my whole setup now everything is messed up apparently. All right. Well, that's not good. Because there's no sign of any errors over here, so I don't know. Oof. So now the whole. Oh man. Yeah, I get I can be heard, but the video is lagging. But that doesn't do me much good. If yeah, I'm really disappointed in that, and I apologize, everybody. I am not at all clear what is the issue or what I could do to fix it. There's not one sign of an error on this end, and yet I'm still trying, and then it won't even open the video for me. All right. Wow. That's terrible. Let's see. Does this work? That's not working either. All right. All right. So, and we're still not fixed, huh? So I'm just, yeah. All right. Let's see what we can do here. What options are there? Give me 1 second. There's no way for me to tell if that worked. Yeah, I'm very sorry, everybody. I'm still trying to figure this out, but so I see folks saying to reset the router and do stuff like that. There's there's nothing wrong with my internet though. That's the thing. It's not an internet issue. Um yeah, so I really do, it's not an internet issue. There's something, it must be something with the browser and the because let's see. The internet is fine, the connection is super strong. Everything else is working perfectly. So I really just don't know what the actual issue is, why it started, or what to do. Let's see, I could fully reboot the browser. Maybe I don't know. I'm going to give one more second here, and then and if I wonder if that loads up, would that work? So if there is good news to all of these, to this and what's happening with my schedule, I don't know if it's the morning though, because I won't be able to do Mondays in the fall once the semester starts. But Does this work if I do this? All right, Comrade Zizwe, it's so good to have you join us again, and thank you very much for, of course, reaching out and looking to help me and us supplement this discussion. If you would, before we got started more completely, just say a word or two about who you are and what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I'm a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party and the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde. I was a part of the ceremony at the end of our party Congress in January 2023, in which we became official members of the PAIGC. And I have my own membership card, and they gave us the Cabral hat and a shawl.
Did that work? Did that help at all? Ugh, this is so frustrating. I'm not even going front. And let's see, did that reboot of the browser work? Because again, there's not one thing signifying any issue over here. Now, do I try again? Do I try that again? And do I try it from the local video as opposed to streaming? All right, Comrade Zizwe, it's so good to have you join us again, and thank you very much for, of course, reaching out and looking to help me and us supplement this discussion. If you would, before we got started more completely, just say a word or two about who you are and what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I'm a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party and the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde. I was a part of the ceremony at the end of our party Congress in January 2023, in which we became official members of the PAIGC. And I have my own membership card, and they gave us the Cabral hat and a shawl as a part of that process. So I was lucky enough to be recruited into the All African People's Revolutionary Party in my first year of college. And I've been involved ever since, back in 1973. And so I'm so happy to be a part of this organization and a part of this movement. And I'm just happy to learn. I love learning. I'm a member of a cadre circle of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And so that's me, basically. I was a product of the Black Power movement. All this stuff affected my life, and which led me to, in my early years, I was already very much radical. When I was 8 years old, I didn't agree with, they asked us to cry for John F. Kennedy when he was assassinated. I refused to cry. I refused to be a part of that stuff. I was rebelling because when I was in school in '63, I witnessed the fire hoses being lit on the children as they demonstrated in Birmingham, and I noticed a whole lot of things. I was conscious of my consciousness was growing, seeing the outright racism that was manifested, even at a very early age in my life, and racism all around. Then the rebellions and the protests that occurred where I live in Cleveland, Ohio. So all that affected my consciousness, so that by the time I got to high school, one of the elders in the community, a brother who was a year or two older than me, asked me to join participate in Kwanzaa and join the Congress of African People. And That was around 16, 17 years old. But then when I went to college, Kwame Ture made a presentation at University of Akron where I was going to school. I didn't even go to the presentation, but a couple of brothers older than me came and saw me with the only dashiki I had, with my very limited haberdashery. And they said, "Oh, we're going to ask him to join the party." And they explained the program to me, and the rest is history.
Right on. So that's a little bit. That is, history is a little bit about what we wanted to talk about this
Yeah.
morning, and I really appreciate you reaching out because you had asked me if how familiar was I with the secret agreement between Patrice Lumumba and Kwame Nkrumah, and I was, as with a lot of these areas, just woefully underinformed. So, but as we want to commemorate not only, of course, Lumumba's 100th birthday, but the ideas, obviously, with which he worked and deployed in struggle. Please, let's talk a little bit about this agreement and what it yeah what it was meant to signify, what it was meant to not signify but do. Yeah.
Yeah. So to put it in the proper context, if we go back to the 1945 Fifth Pan-African Congress that took place in Manchester, England, in which the leaders of the Pan-African movement, who had benefited from all the brothers and sisters who had been a part of the previous Pan-African Congresses and Conference of 1900, including Kwame Nkrumah, George Padmore, C.L.R. James, and many others who met in Manchester, England. One of the resolutions that came out of that was to build mass-based parties. And from 1945 to 1960, many countries in Africa, after being divided up into 53 separate units, began to gain their independence. Most people don't know that Sudan was independent in 1956, before Ghana. As a matter of fact, they claim that Egypt was independent in 1922, but we know that it was just a puppet government. So when Ghana became independent, the significance of Ghana becoming independent, in which Kwame Nkrumah in that Independence Day speech said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it's tied to the independence of the whole of Africa. So the very next year, he immediately began to work on that, what he had been saying in that speech, and also in different organizations he had participated in prior to becoming the prime minister in Ghana in 1951, before independence. And he was thrown in jail along with his comrades. And when the masses of the people overwhelmingly voted for him to become the prime minister, and then they negotiated with the colonizing power, which was England, to attain independence on March 6, 1957. So as I said, the very next year, Nkrumah and his administration, and which included Africans from all over the world, like George Padmore, C.L.R. James, and others, they decided to have what was called the All African Peoples Conference on April 15th, 1958, also known as the Conference of Independent African States, which they declared that as Africa Freedom Day. And then later on that year, in December, they had another All African Peoples Conference, where some say that the first one was not an All African Peoples Conference, but the one in December was definitely the All African Peoples Conference, in which Patrice Lumumba attended and participated in. And as the leader of the MNC, the Movement National Congolese, he learned a lot, and he began to understand the necessity to fight for the liberation of the Congo as a cornerstone, the building block to the United States of Africa. And this is what he clearly stated every time he talked, is that the Congo would be the centerpiece for the United States of Africa. So after that conference, when he came back to the Congo and they managed to win the elections in 1960 to the dismay of all the imperialist forces throughout the world. And then he made his Independence Day speech, although he was not on the rostrum. And that's amazing that here he is, the elected prime minister, and they didn't even put him on the rostrum to speak when the king of Belgium came to talk about how they supposedly granted independence to the Congo and all this good stuff that King Leopold II did in the Congo. And of course, Lumumba made that speech that was so riveting that the imperialists and all their lackeys were very much angry about what he said. They really didn't want him to be able to speak, but he managed to manipulate his way into that rostrum, which is a good thing for us because he exposed to the world the atrocities that had been occurring in the Congo for centuries. It also exposed to the world the necessity for the Congo once again to be the centerpiece of the building of the United States of Africa. And so that's how that all came into being. And then this is June 30th, 1960. In the year 1960, we had a whole lot of things that happened in regard to the struggle for pan-Africanism. It was called the Year of Africa because you had 16 different African nation states that attained independence, but yet at the same time, you had the infamous Charlottesville Massacre, March 21st, 1960, in occupied Azania, right? So while you're having these states becoming independent, at the same time, you got the opposite of that, where you had brutal repression going on in occupied Azania and other places around the continent. So we know that these granting of independence programs were basically a new strategy of imperialism. They realized that the winds of change were blowing across Africa, and so it's better that we concede and give them sham independence or flag independence rather than go through a brutal armed struggle, which is very costly, right? And which would wind up being the death knell of imperialism. So this is what they did. They conceded, okay, let's grant independence, let them have the independence, but we're going to keep the economy tied to Europe and America. And so this is the backdrop to what Patrice Lumumba faced in the Congo, and the events that proceeded after the independence are a reflection of that whole situation. So now he goes to Washington, D.C. to talk to the president of the U.S. in 1960, which was Eisenhower. And, you know, I revisited the soundtrack to a coup, thanks to you for hipping me to that one. I was reviewing that last night, and I'm glad I reviewed it because a lot of details I missed where they showed how he travels to the U.S. to try to get some kind of relationship whereby they would support the independence of the Congo, and Eisenhower refused to meet with him. He went to go golfing, you know.
Yeah.
So immediately after that, that was July 25th. So he comes back, and that's when he signed the so-called secret agreement, which really wasn't secret, with the already established Ghana-Guinea-Mali Union that was started in 1958 when Kwame Nkrumah, after the independence of Ghana, provided a 10 million pound loan to Conakry, Guinea in 1958, and then provided Mali with $14 million loan to help those other nation states as a result of the imperialists pulling out and trying to destroy the economy. In the spirit of Pan-Africanism, Kwame Nkrumah was doing the proper thing, helping the sister states to get up on their feet so we can develop a United States of Africa. So that was the launch of the Ghana, Guinea, Mali Union. And here Lumumba knows about this and decides that I want to join this Union of African States also, bring the Congo into it. And the declaration was signed on August 8, 1960, to be a part of the Ghana, Guinea, Mali Union as the basis of the Union of African States. And the Congo was supposed to be a center, the headquarters actually. It was going to be moved to the Congo for the United States of Africa or the Union of African States when he signed that agreement. Also, they were supposed to be, as part of one of the documents that spells out these resolutions they agreed to, it was supposed to be the center of a media, a radio station, TV station, a media complex. So those were the things that were, it's a lot of more details about this agreement that that we'll have to talk about sometime in the future, or when you display the presentation by brother and comrade Shakara.
Shakara, yeah, no doubt. And I don't know
Yeah.
if that will have, if I will have played that before by now and then or not, but we will cover it. And part of the brilliant presentation is that it includes the 8 major points of
Yes.
that agreement, which
Yes.
I agree that that Shakara sort of joyfully highlights, which is number
Yes.
6, which is military cooperation.
Yes.
That they were very clear that not only that African unity was necessary, colonial boundaries needed to be destroyed.
Exactly.
But that they were going to have to not only share and redistribute resources, but defend them.
Exactly.
And as we see even right now today, that concept is by no means out of date. You know what I mean? Or
yeah, because they can.
Yeah.
Nkrumah had called for the necessity to have a African high command, and when Lumumba signed on to it, that's one of the 8 points. They also talked about the economic integration of Africa, I believe, if I'm correct, one of the 8 points.
Absolutely.
Because Nkrumah was talking about an African common market.
In fact, let's just pull it up here.
Thank you.
I will, like I said, it'll be. This is from Shakara's presentation, and I will make sure that it'll be linked and shared. And we may have already played it by now. I don't know, but these are the points that he highlights in his presentation that include number 5 there. Repositioning Africa in terms of its relationship to the European common market, engaging number 4 in trade agreements with African states. So 1 is unqualified support of all of the African states in the general struggle for Pan-African bloc, a policy of neutralism with the purpose of achieving genuine independence, the breaking down of colonial barriers through cultural exchanges, trade agreements between African states, Africa's position with regard to the European common market, military cooperation, the building in Leopoldville of a powerful radio station with the aid of all African states, and the creation of a research center in Leopoldville as well. So, and then I'm sure they would have moved quickly to rename that city as well.
Yes.
But yeah, so this is part of what, as you were pointing out, would have struck a lot of fear among Western powers then and now.
Yes.
So it's,
Jared, look at what's going on now in the Congo. I know you probably know about the recent agreement.
Not enough. Oh yeah, no, please, yeah, talk about that. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, the current president of Congo just sold out the Congo, made an agreement with this U.S. administration to allow for the U.S. to exploit those rare minerals and other resources in the Congo in exchange for protecting the Congo from the incursion of the so-called M23 and the other forces that were invading in the eastern provinces. So this is all a part of that imperialist intrigue to control the resources of the Congo to the benefit of the imperialist powers. It's a disgusting move on behalf of the current president, and it shows the necessity for us to put together a coordinated military, an all-African People's Revolutionary Army in the within the framework of a all-African Committee for Political Coordination, because we got a lot of work to do to continue this struggle to unify Africa.
Yeah, and I was just looking at, part of what the current Congolese administration is arguing is that I'm sure the U.S. loves is also that this deal with the U.S. will help them reduce their dependence on China.
Yes.
But yeah, to your point, it's just such a diabolically backwards and reactionary move, certainly from where we were just talking in terms of Lumumba, and that's
yes. And you know what else I want to comment on, Jared?
Sure, please.
Now, looking at the soundtrack to a coup, it shows how they were saying that Russia and China is influencing the people in the Congo. It's that same lie, the same form of psychological warfare, which you always talk about, that they was using back then. It's the same tactic. Russia and China is influencing Africa, like what's going on with the Alliance for Sahelian States and other efforts to keep to get Africa liberated, totally liberated, unified. So they always pull out the Russia-China card, like as if Africans can't think for themselves, And we don't understand that, we have been brutalized and oppressed and colonized, and that we have the right to choose who our international partners are going to be. So it's the same thing going on to this day that they was doing when Congo became independent.
Yeah, it is all. I mean, it's at its most simple level, which is unfortunately in many cases just with these issues where I'm stuck. I mean, it is just a basic understanding that the resources that Congo and the rest of the continent have are going to attract the attention of the rest of the world one way or another. So this idea that any engagement with Russia or China or anyone else means that they are subservient to those countries is on the surface absurd. But the flip side of it is also that to Lumumba's point, and just to sort of bring it back to what he and Nkrumah and others were trying to do, that relationship still should be governed by and benefiting first and foremost the Africans and a reorganization outside of colonial imposition of the continent itself. So in other words,
exactly,
it's not realistic to expect that again, people around the world are not going to come looking for some sort of arrangement to get access to those resources. It's just a matter of what will that relationship look like and who will ultimately be in control of it and benefit. So of course the US is happy to use these false claims to say, oh, when we see them dealing with Russia or China or anyone else, that means they are falling under the thumb of some form of communism or something else, and therefore we, the US and the West, have to get involved, so that of course the US or the West could do something very similar, if not more exploitative and hostile, in extracting those resources and controlling the land and the labor for their benefit. So it's all just, I mean, it's a struggle.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's a part of the struggle for the total liberation and unification of Africa. under scientific socialism. So imperialism is still, it never sleeps. It's still trying its best to keep Africa dependent on the Western imperialist system as we try to put together the unity among these states and to integrate these economies. So it's been a long-term battle, and it's still going to be much more time before we can break away. And as a matter of fact, this thing called AFRICOM, the Africa Command, has been on display recently, as you full well know, with the situation in Burkina Faso and the Alliance for Sahelian States, whereby the head of AFRICOM, this African, Mark Langley, just had a meeting in Kenya, right? And rallied 29, 30 African states to be a part of this AFRICOM program to so-called defend these states against terrorism, which we know is just a smokescreen for continued military incursion and the support of terrorism, actually, in Africa. So they're gearing up. They're gearing up for an all-out battle over Africa. They already have 29 military bases. And as we studied in the party, we know that they have these 29 military bases, and no country except for one has any kind of relationship with the U.S. military, and that would be Eritrea. Only one. So now with the independence of the Alliance for Sahelian States kicking out the U.S. military and the French and the other European imperialist forces, this battle is waging. It's getting more intense now for the control of Africa. And what's going on in Iran is very important. We're writing a statement as we speak to get it finished and how it relates to Africa, because this is all part of this policy of full spectrum dominance. And so this conflict going on in Iran ain't nothing, because when it comes down to this fight over Africa, which is the one that gave the life to European imperialism from the beginning, and it's also going to spell the death of European imperialism. The fight over Africa's resources, that is. So that intense battle is yet to come. We're gearing up for it. The mass of African people, are the youth, the women, are showing their disdain for the imperialist forces. This is sweeping Africa, and what we have to do is get our people organized for the oncoming struggle that's going to be happening over Africa in the near future. It's happening as we speak, through psychological warfare, the use of these proxy forces that they have in Africa. They're still attacking Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. That's causing conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia. The conflict in Sudan, breaking up Sudan into South Sudan and Sudan. All these things are a manifestation of imperialism. And so that's why we have to get Africa and African people unified into a coordinated force along with our international allies. Because we're fighting against a global system that is very powerful and has many puppet Africans fighting alongside with them as a result of neocolonialism, and also puppet states around the world, the Arab states who refuse to support the Palestinian struggle, who stand against Iran. All these forces are lined up, getting ready to help to keep Africa in subjugation. So we have to get organized. We got to get Africa organized. We got to get our people organized who are Africans, who are outside of Africa, and all the working class people around the world. Because as we see recently, the struggle is getting very intense on a global scale.
Well, Comrade Zizwe, I appreciate that, and I definitely appreciate you reaching out and adding some important supplement to this attempt at a series here, and look forward to hearing back from you, and definitely I'll be looking for that the AAPRP statement on Iran, and we'll share that, of course. So this has been great. Thank you very much. And
thank you. It was my pleasure.
Right on. Ready for the
Anytime.
revolution. Yeah,
just call me. Here's my number and a dime. Call me anytime.
Salute to Brother Zizwe, and big thanks to him for doing that. And I'll make sure the link to that is in the show description if it's not already. And again, thanks to everybody for hanging in with the technical difficulties as well. Now, before we move on, I did want to. I'll put this in the show description as well. I haven't had a chance to really go through it very carefully, but the statement from the AAPRP on Iran is out. It's very thorough, and just the illegal state of Israel started bombing Iran on Friday, June 13th. The aerial bombing coincided with the assassination of a number of scientists, generals, and civilians. This unprovoked criminal assault was accompanied by sabotage of government facilities, drone attacks on civilian infrastructure, and the unleashing of internal cells loyal to the West, determined to dismantle the Iranian state. The attack was followed days later by the U.S. bombing of three Iranian nuclear facilities. These military assaults, taken as a whole, are eerily reminiscent to the 2011 attack on Libya that killed Muammar Gaddafi and devastated Africa's most progressive nation state. So I will, and the old statement is as you heard Brother Zizwe talking about, full spectrum dominance, Western dominance. They get into petrodollars, the dollarism that Malcolm talked about, and that this is the last gasp of a dying imperialist monster. And of course, the significance of pan-Africanism and standing with Iran. So again, I'll make sure the link is in the show description. And so I did, as we brought up, I did also want to play. I'm going to give it a shot. I hope, you know, I did want to play a few minutes of Brother Shaka Ra's presentation that we referenced. And the link to its entire video will be in the show description as well. Before we move on. But in talking more about this secret agreement, I just, this presentation is really good. And so I'd encourage people to check the full video when they get a chance if they haven't seen it already. But I just want to play this roughly 10 minutes.
Neo-colonialism with a system of colonialism. And whilst he was elected as the first Prime Minister of the Congo, there is an independence ceremony taking place. And could you believe that the Prime Minister of this nation that is in the making is not on the bill to speak? Because as well as revolutionaries in the Congo, there are some stool pigeons, some sellouts, some traitors, who, the Bakra, the Aiba, the Abruni, the Mundele, the white man, would prefer to be ruling the agenda of the people of the Congo. And so Papa Patrice Lumumba sat down whilst in this circus. A prince came from Belgium. His name was Baudouin, colonizer. Rose up and spoke and gave all kind of accolades and plaudits to the nation of Belgium and invoked the demon King Leopold in the ceremony and gave thanks to him because what we are now engaged in, this circus, was a part of the vision of Leopold II. You not hear me, I say? And Lumumba said, no, we're not having it. And the man who was not scheduled to speak stood up and took the microphone. And he said that we in the Congo will never forget the crimes that have been committed against us as a people. He also said, brothers and sisters, the Congo's independence marks a decisive step towards the liberation of the African continent. What did he say? He said, the Congo's independence marks a decisive step towards the liberation of the entire African continent. I want to understand what the man said.
Yeah, that's what he said.
We are going to show the world what the black man can do. And let me add, the black woman can do.
When we work in freedom.
When we work in freedom.
Yes.
And we are going to make the Congo the center of the sun's radiance for the entire African continent.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what Lumumba said. He said we are going to keep watch over the lands of our country. Him know the devil still the boat. We said we're going to keep watch over the lands of our country so that they truly profit her children.
Yeah.
Remember, brothers and sisters, colonialism is the process by which African land is commandeered, African people are subjugated, and the wealth of our people and our land is extracted for the benefit of other people, namely the Bakra, the Oyibo, the Mundele, the Obruni, the white man.
The Bakra, don't forget Bakra. The crack. The crack. Bakra.
He knew what he was saying. We are going to restore what? Ancient laws.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
And make new ones. Sorry, we stay upon the ancient laws, but we forget the next part. And make new ones, which will be just and noble. That's what Papa Patrice Lumumba said, brothers and sisters.
Be serious.
In the midst of the circus, he knew what he was saying.
Yeah.
And they knew what he was saying.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the 30th of June 1960. A couple months later, in Mosiah, August of 1960, Papa Patrice Lumumba is opening the All-African Conference, which was then held in Congo. You're already with me? Yeah? The first All-African Conference was held in 1958, significantly carrying the inspiration of the Osajefo Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. And the Osajefo had a very big impact on Papa Patrice Lumumba at that conference. Is everybody with me? And so the next conference was held in Congo for a number of different reasons. But as the prime minister of this now new nation, Papa Patrice Lumumba opens the occasion and he says these words: "Ministers, dear fighters for the freedom of Africa, it is your duty to show to the world and those who sneer at us that nothing can deter us from liberating Africa."
Come on.
Him never say Congo, you know.
Africa.
Him say Africa.
Yeah.
I want to know overstand Wagwan. Which is our common aim. We can achieve this aim only in solidarity and unity. Our solidarity will have meaning only when it is boundless and when we are convinced that Africa's destiny is indivisible. What does that mean, brothers and sisters? Remember that in 1884 and 1885, the Bakra, the Oyibo, the Tubab, the white man, carved up Africa, brothers and sisters, and sought to confine us in these nation states that were fit for their purpose.
Yeah.
Patrice Lumumba, as the Prime Minister of the Congo, is saying this thing is only going to work when we realize that Africa's destiny is what? indivisible. Such are the deep-going principles of the work you will have to do. This meeting will prepare the ground for a summit conference at which our countries will have to speak on. Listen now. Patrice Lumumba is setting the agenda for the conference. What are they there to speak on? 1, the unqualified support of all African states in the general struggle for a pan-African bloc. The unity of the political unity of African people. Is everybody with me?
Yeah.
2, a policy of neutralism with the purpose of achieving genuine independence. 3, the breaking down of colonial barriers through cultural exchange. The breaking down of what kind of barriers?
Colonial barriers.
Okay, all right. Trade agreements between African states. That means, now remember now, the way our nations have been constructed was to privilege and prioritize trade with the so-called metropole. That means whatever colonial power was ruling over us at any point. Is everybody with me? Yeah. There was no consideration given to whether Congo was trading with Angola, whether Congo was trading with Rwanda. We're going to come back to that in a second. Whether Congo was trading with Namibia, whether Congo was trading with Ghana and Nigeria. So that the Africans who are now they want to engage in trade agreements between African states. The deeper significance of that we don't have time to go into today, but please understand that the European world was engaging in a similar process at this time because they were trying to repair themselves after they mashed up themselves after mass European War II, misnomered World War II. And they were seeking to unify themselves and keep Africans divided so that in their unity they can better exploit us for their own purposes. That is the context in which this agenda is being drawn up at this moment in time. The month of Messiah 1960. Then they say Africa's position with regard to the European common market. That means now we're not going to be dealing with the European common market as an uncommon market of segregated and separated and divided Africans. We're going to have one policy.
Word.
Is everybody with me? Then number 6 now, anything now? Military cooperation. What did I hear what the man said?
Yeah.
The man said military cooperation. Remember that our people had just come out of mass European War II, fighting for whatever colonizer colonized with.
Yeah.
If you're coming by the French, you're in the French armed forces. If you're colonized by the British, you're in the British armed forces. Etc., etc. But now we're going to have a military cooperation among African people. All right. 7, the building in Leopold of a powerful radio station with the aid of all the African states. That's taking control of the media.
Yeah, I wanted to leave that part
8,
in there.
the creation of a research center in Leopoldville. Leopoldville was then a city in Congo. I believe it's Leopoldville that was renamed Kinshasa.
Yeah.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken. There's a get rid of the Leopold name, and you know what I'm saying.
There we go.
Yeah. All right.
So that's why.
Then now, brothers and sisters.
All right. So please, Shaka Ra goes on to many other, not many, but several other issues and topics in that presentation. So the link will be in the show description. Please check it out. If you again haven't already. And salute to him and to that channel. So, all right, please everybody like, share, subscribe, and support the platform however you see fit. Get you some merch at blackliberationmedia.org. The link is in the show description. Make sure you've rung the bell, put these in your socials, drop a comment, etc., and so forth. and yeah, let's extend Saturdays into Monday. Welcome. Good to see you, Renee.
You didn't give me no warning or nothing.
Oh, I don't know. I figured, we had, what warning is
Ooh.
necessary.
Morning, y'all. What up?
Good morning. And we did mention Saturday with Musa that you both might join this morning.
We
So
did.
I'm glad you're able to. And before we move on, let me invite your first thoughts, your or any first comments you would want to make, and then I'm going to pull up this article that from Black Agenda Report that we can talk a little bit about, have some fun. At least I'm gonna have some fun. I don't want to project my hate onto you, but there's some good hate in this article that I'm definitely going to enjoy and even look to extend as we commemorate Ture, Fanon, Lumumba.
I am always down to join the petty train with you. So whatever works for me.
Right on. So I do need to apologize to the authors of this article that I'll pull up here, because I had been trying to. We had been in some communication about them joining, and I messed it up. Let me see how to better do this here. But I messed it. As Renee, you unfortunately are somewhat aware. I sometimes need some help with the memory and the organization.
I have learned to send the text. Just send the text.
So
if Jared don't answer the email, just send the text.
Yeah. So all right, I don't know. I'm just gonna. I hope this will work. The link will be in the show description, but I'm just gonna leave it like this because I don't feel like spending all day trying to figure out the exact layout here. And my apology. So everybody, I did move over to Restream because for whatever reason, Restream does generally, albeit this problem's whatever, it works better for me. So that's why it's but all right. But this article came out on the 18th. In Black Agenda Report, decolonizing the Caribbean intellectual betrayal of Palestine, what Fanon and Ture never would have done. All right, and so as we overlap some of these commemorations, yesterday being Ture's birthday, and obviously we're doing this series with Fanon and Lumumba. This just was perfect. And again, I apologize to Jermaine Ostiana and Carrie Sinanan. Forgive me for mispronouncing it. Who I was again trying to arrange, and we will still continue because I'm happy to revisit this after my insufficient and, to Renee's point, petty approach to it. But what did I hear? Did I hear? Musa, yes, right on. All right, Musa's in the building. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you for joining us again.
Yes, y'all got me.
And bringing Saturdays to Monday.
Well, allegedly, just in case any of my coworkers are watching this, we're allegedly live on a Monday, but
oh no, this is your segment is pre-taped. Yeah. We're just airing it live. Yeah. Let me just clarify that. We pre-taped this and then edited it so it would look like that's how my skills are. I'm kind of fly with the editing now, so it can, but until you broke the fourth wall or whatever, I was just going to let the live myth play on. But we are, but we did. All right. So, all right. By the way, that's funny because that's my issue with the fall and my new schedule, and by the way, that's what I had been getting away with on Fridays. Just my own little version of that, but now they got me fully in a department. Now I got new oversight and surveillance levels, so it's some adjustments have to be made.
Yeah.
Yes, Chitty Matcha, keep up. All right, we pre-taped airing live. All right. So I'll just go over a few points from this article, and then we can pick up. And then I do have a video clip that supplements this piece, because I thought it was really, again, timely and given what we're all been talking about. And again, Musa, thanks again for yesterday or Saturday, because your contribution already helped in the household discussion around celebrity and Beyonce that we had yesterday. So it was perfect. But as it says here, to honor Kwame Ture is to condemn Zionism. Yet the lecture bearing his name platformed a speaker who calls anti-Zionism hate, erasing Ture's clarity that Palestine's liberation is inseparable from Pan-African struggle. We note with vexation that the Kwame Ture Memorial Lecture Series at the Pan-African Festival at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, June 15th, was launched by distinguished Professor Lewis R. Gordon of the University of Connecticut. Gordon delivered a talk entitled Decolonizing the Mind, the Relevance of Fanon in the Modern Caribbean. The selection of Gordon for this event is a travesty of Ture's powerful legacy and his strident anti-Zionist position, which is also core to his Pan-African vision. So they go over a little bit of what Ture, his approach has always been. He used to talk all the time about he advocated reading, what was it, a book a week or a book a month on Zionism or something like that. So he's an ardent student of it. But as he says here, is quoted accurately saying here, I am anti-Zionist and will remain so until it is destroyed because it is unjust, illegal, immoral, and racist system. In a 1995 interview, Ture made it clear that Zionism has nothing to do with religion, but has its organizational origins in the modern Europe via Theodor Herzl. Herzl himself had written Cecil Rhodes in 1902, asking for support for the idea of Zionism, which is a colonial idea. Ture named Zionism as the genocidal settler colonial project it was. It is imperialism, said Herzl. It has gone and taken the lands of the Palestinian people, and through terrorism has driven them out, end quote. Ture, like other Caribbean radicals, Aimé Césaire, Walter Rodney, Claudia Jones, and Frantz Fanon, directly linked settler colonialism and Western imperialism to the underdevelopment of Africa. In opposition to Ture, Lewis Gordon is a proponent of the Israeli state and the project of Zionism. In a recorded talk for the American Bar Association, he stated that to use the term Zionist critically is a slur. And we will look at that in just a moment. On the escalation of the genocide since October 7th, Gordon has remained silent. In October 2023, when pressed to explain his silence on the Israeli bombardment of Gaza, he stated on Twitter, "Given my limited time, I focused my energy on grave matters elsewhere. Both Ture and Fanon have told us plenty of times that silence is a parasitical business model." Wow. Bars. But Fanon was clear on the evil of settler colonialism's brute force and the wretched of the earth. Gordon focused on love and radicalism in his talk. Hate is easy. You see something you hate, burn it down, but love is building, said Gordon. Gordon's evasions, along with his clear circumscriptions of Fanon's work, are characteristic of a wider agenda of critical counterinsurgency, particularly with Caribbean studies, to appropriate Fanon for liberal Zionism and to capture his radical anti-colonial work for all that he opposed. Yet within this context that requires clarity, Gordon, like so many others, chooses to uphold Zionist oppression and to limit Fanon's anti-colonial legacy. A philosopher with one-dimensional gaze, unable to undo his colonial masquerade for the advancement of humanity, Gordon traps himself in his own bacchanal of intellectual wordplay, a mix-up of religion, Torah scriptures, and Black Judaism saviorism, all while invisibilizing the oppressive nature of the Jewish Sephardim ruling elites in the Caribbean who are still on the run from the reparative ghosts of accountability for enslavement and present-day colonial subjection within economic spaces and financial institutions. Josie Fanon and Muriel Fanon Mendez assure us of Fanon's pro-Palestinian legacy, that is Fanon's widow and daughter. Even though Gordon fantasizes about the opposite, there is no doubt that Fanon would have been in full agreement with Palestinian cultural worker Ghassan Kanafani. And please check our interviews around Kanafani, forgive me mispronunciation, that we've done on this platform. And that liberating Palestine by throwing roses at Israelis is not how it really works in 2025. If you listen carefully, you might hear Therese echoing Marley, saying he would have never wanted to hear such blatant devil duppy philosophy. All right, so we started there. While I pull up this,
just real quick, the word
please,
is
I'll invite
the word
you.
is duppy.
Duppy. I said it wrong. Sorry about that. Thank you for the correction. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't read that piece yet, actually, so I'll have to do a deeper dive. But already, first off, the writing, I mean, the Bacchanal reference there, phenomenal. I think that an anti-Zionist politic is literally inseparable from someone like not only Kwame Ture, happy birthday, Kwame Ture, but also virtually any Black radical revolutionary who we would look up to and whose works we would read. And I think that part of what this article is actually exposing is how big the gap is from just a few decades ago with Caribbean African thinkers to today, where you have Caribbean heads of states with the Israeli embassy in their island, and so those are just some of my initial thoughts. I'm curious what you think, Renee and Jeb.
I mean, I agree with you, but this is the consistent thing that's done, right? Like this pretending as if there's no connection, pretending as if like, this is what they would have said. This is what they actually meant. It's the whole whitewashing of Black radicalism. So, I mean, it's literally like line and step. I'm so not surprised to see, Black Democrats, misleaders, all of them doing this nonsense, because the goal is to lie and distract and to prevent revolution. So whatever's going to line that up. Right.
Which is why I and my crew became haters with the hate awards, because we wanted to hate on everything that prevents revolution. And that's why I made a note here that I just pulled up to myself about why I hated the way Gordon misuses hate. So I wrote, and forgive me, because I had just watched the Grenfell Towers documentary in which they talked about the cladding that was added on to beautify it for the rich people around there, that ended up burning the people that was the main cause of the burning. So I said, hate is easy. You see something you hate, burn it down, he said, but love is building. Bullshit. In the context of colonization, love becomes the cladding used to build the societal structures, which in the end confine, delimit, and then burn the colonized trapped within. Hate of colonialism and the colonizer is the righteous demolition of previous structures before any new and appropriate word can be properly rebuilt. Anyone speaking of love and building in this context is who Don Corleone warned of as the traitor. That's the traitor. So but here's a clip of that is referenced in the article and I'll put the link here as well so people can see the full lecture. And I did watch a lot of it, and understand the logic of one thing I will say just quickly is that I don't know enough about Jewish history to untangle all of the nonsense I know he's doing with it. That's all I can say. So I admit this is bad method. This is unscientific. But he does if you watch the whole thing, he does a lot of twisting and turning the history of Jews, which is the article referenced, suppresses what has actually been going on and conflates a lot of different things. But to really get into it, I think you would have to have a more expert, be more expert. Anyway, let me just play this little bit. That is, enough.
And Scott brought up some of this. and it's connected to my point about racialize anybody. You could take any positive concept and turn it into a slur. Today, Zionism is used as a slur. It's used in such a way that it's like, have you stopped beating your wife? And you start defending yourself. But the reality is there have been many kinds. There was Black Zionism. Even in the movie The Matrix, they called the place of refuge Zion. It was a term for refuge. But right now, as a political tactic, to turn it into white supremacy and then to erase the diversity of Jewish people, subtextually, that is a move that is to issue a kind of trigger hatred of Jewish people. Now, the other one that's very complicated is how we talk about right and left and a lot of these areas. But what happens is we talk about right and left. The right historically has been a category around tradition, safety, order, and has been premised on the idea of singularity and purity. There's a lot of different issues in what's been called the left historically. But what we have is something very new today. We literally have now a right-wing left. And you may say, what the hell is that? Well, it is when the logic is not about coexistence, communication, and possibility, but boils down to a binary of simply whose side are you on, and construct other people as enemies. That leads to a logic against inclusion, and it radicalizes precarity.
All right, so that again, the links will be in the show description in shortly, and people can assess for themselves if I'm misrepresenting anything that he said. But to reduce a critique of Zionism to anti-Semitism in a slur, and then to do this whole thing of, which is so anti even the labor movement, basics of the labor movement, which side are you on, was literally turned into a song that Dead President Rebel Diaz actually remade brilliantly not too many years ago. But what side are you on, boy? Which side are you on? If you you have to pick a side in these situations. There is no, and then I'll stop here with Amiri Baraka's point. Both the slave and the slave master cannot be right. So pick a side, son. And this idea of that to do so is to demonize and to leave room for precarity and whatever else is wow.
Well, and just to drive that point home further, Baraka got that from Kwame Ture, actually.
Oh shit.
What is good for the slave master cannot be good for the slave. What is good for the slave cannot be good for the slave master. This is therefore what we call a dialectic, my young Africans. That's like a line for line quote. I think it's fascinating because the less read person can hear him use phrases like the limitations of precarity, or I mean, a lot of word soup was happening there to say a whole lot of nothing. And what people like him do is there's this thing, we don't have a good grasp of history in the US. We don't fully understand a term like modernity, like the modern current world and its structures of the last 400 to 600 years, depending on who you ask. And so they can extrapolate Jewish history from 2,000 years ago, before the advent of capitalism, certainly before the advent of Western imperialism, in many regards before the invention of a white European identity, and apply this history to the conditions of modernity, and specifically of today. And so people like him are snake oil salesmen who are able to really mix up this language, just to tell you Zionism is a slur, which is just hilarious. To call someone a Zionist, it's like white people saying it's reverse racism when you call them racist. And there is, I was actually this morning trying to reread some of Black Power, the book by Kwame Ture. A lot of people know Kwame Ture, the speech maker, forget that he was a writer. And in 1992, he wrote an afterword to the book that came out later, and he's reflecting on the book. And he actually says one of the things he feels as though they missed in the book, because it was co-written with Kwame Ture and Charles Hamilton, was he's like, we actually didn't talk about Zionism, right? He's like, one of the things that we forecast in the book was the need for political coalition with other oppressed nationalities. And the most glaring example of this work going forward since the book has been the deep ties between Africans and Zionism. This is what he says when he returns to the afterword. So then you hear, and I'll wrap with this, you hear someone like Gordon, you know, noted scholar, awarded historian, I'm sure making more money per year than I'll make in my lifetime. And it could not be more of an abuse to our actual history, to our actual legacy, and the ideologies of people like, you know, Gordon makes a lot of money talking about people like MLK and all these figures. So that it's just disgusting. I'll put it to put it in simple terms. It's disgusting.
And then doing it at a lecture named after Ture in Trinidad. I mean,
I didn't get.
Yeah, that was the other. I hope. Yeah, I might have read that part too fast or skipped it. Whatever. But yeah, that's the setting that this is taking place at a what is supposed to be. So it's layers of
so it's intentional counterinsurgency is what I'm hearing basically. But okay.
It's hard, it's hard to judge intent, but I mean the outcome is certainly okay. All right. For me, speak for myself. My bad. Nasty work.
These things are so frustrating for me, and I really, when I tell you, I truly struggle when I listen to people talk absolute shit and like try to convince people like what they're saying makes sense, right? Like to even bring up like, oh, the Matrix and Zion, as if the name Zion for a place was not written down thousands of years ago, which obviously could have nothing to do with Israel since it didn't exist. And so, you know, it's the United States that made Jerusalem a part of Israel. Like this whole nonsensical consistent attempt to pretend as if it is okay to wipe an entire population of indigenous people off the face of the earth is like, when I tell you I can't, I just cannot. I cannot. Like, I don't have the energy for it. It's absolute diabolical, insidious. James is correct. Like, that is, like, I struggle with this shit, man. I really do. And it is like deeply personal for me. I still can't share what's going on in my life. Jared knows pieces of it. Like this is so painful for me, and I struggle with it. I was on our text chat yesterday because I finally forced myself to sit down and watch the encampments because I mentally and I wasn't ready yesterday, but I needed to do it because I was waiting. I had been waiting too long, and I needed to just do it. And I cried. And it's not even a movie it's not even a documentary that's really meant to make you cry, I don't think. But like everything that surrounds this situation is fucking painful. So to listen to somebody who's supposed to be an intellect, an academic, who's supposed to be teaching people and to just spew nonsense, my energy level, like that's somebody, like I want to fight him. Like, I just can't,
Well, you know, also I think it kind of dives into what Jared, your, I don't know what to call it, conflict perhaps with Dr. Carr. It's that you know better, right? It's the idea that you are a university endowed professor with all of the resources and books and information and histories and research in the world, and you actually know better. So when you're abusing the Rasta concept of Zion you know better, right? You know Zion is diametrically opposed to Babylon, which is actually what Israel and the US and NATO represent. And in fact, even Rastas who are in the gully who've never read Rodney and these people can articulate that to you far more clearly than he did in this clip. And so I think that's part of what's really egregious about these people, the Black Zionists particularly, is it's often not people who are wayward and confused. It's very well-resourced individuals who know better, you know, and my mom used to always say, if you knew better, then do better, and they just don't do better, you know?
No, you got it right. That is the most frustrating. It's like, come on, man, yeah, if you don't want to be associated with a certain politic, just be quiet. Like I don't agree with that, but I would prefer it. It's these overt aggressive attempts to redefine and rebrand and do all the counterinsurgent work you all are talking about. I got one more for you that I did check up. I was looking for an update given the most recent rebelliousness in Kenya. And I haven't seen, so somebody let me know if I'm being unfair to our dear sister here, but the most recent post that I found on her Instagram, since I started trying to pay a little bit of attention, I'm a little bit concerned. So I'll just share this and you know.
The people, this is our first event. The kids are excited for breakfast. I'm excited. We're going to read some books. We're going to share some love, be with everybody. We're going to hang out.
And bring about the freedom of people of African descent by any means necessary.
Mama used to tell a story about the earth and all the glory. Used to say that it was more than dirt. All the kids would gather around, sitting on the ground. She'd tell us what it's worth. She said, teach them, it will feed them.
I like the track.
Was an absolute success. We got to read, so we fed some knowledge. We got to feed some food, so everybody's belly is full. This is amazing. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. This is exactly what it's all about. This is why we did this. This is where all the funds are going. Look at this. They're happy, super happy, full babies. The best. Okay, so let's just feed the people.
So I was looking to see if there was going to be any statement from her since she moved there to start up everything. They're not showing it. There must have been so many more comments since I last saw it, because when I first looked at that, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. There were like two of the, at the time I first saw that, two of the top or comments at the top at the time were from people that I knew and had even been comrades with like 20 years ago, praising her work there. And you know, so we you know. And you know, you hear the Malcolm X in there, you see Feed the Pete, you hear him saying by any means necessary. And then when I looked into that a little bit a few weeks ago, I mean, that's a Mother Teresa descended Catholic Charities operation going on there. And so I was waiting to see if, you know, is she going to have something to say about the police brutality, the brother getting killed, now I think, is it 16, 17 people killed now?
Yep.
In this most recent. And I haven't seen it yet. Not that I want her to, but I was just curious. And then since we were all just talking about the celebrity counterinsurgent, and then, you know, I just thought I would throw that in there at the tail end of all of this. But anyway, I don't know. I'm not, you know. All right, we could. I'm just throwing it out there.
It's just
you know.
such a struggle, man. It's such a struggle.
Yeah.
Why do they do this, man?
You know,
well, so
this one.
Go ahead. No,
this one's hard for me because I love me some Khalees. Like she has a live cover of "Smells Like Teen Spirit" that is on repeat on a weekly basis in my house. I mean, but I think like first off, if you replace Khalees in that image we just saw with a white priest in a priest outfit, how much different would the reception be to the viewers, right? How all of us in this chat, in this call, how much different would we view this situation? And, you know, this Western saviorism while you're also stealing massive swaths of the land at the same time against the wishes of the locals, so you can sell your cheap products. I mean, it's nasty work, and I would be curious. My assumption is not, but I'd be curious if she even spoke with anybody, any Panthers, to use that logo. You know, I mean, to just slap the Panther logo on something is extremely disrespectful in and of itself while you're just doing missionary charity work. And don't get me wrong, maybe there's some former Panthers who you know.
I've reached out about it, and there was no answer to me about there was no discussion of any Panthers or any collaboration. And then when I even asked specifically how are you sourcing the t-shirts? Like, where are they even coming from? You know, like what, and there was no answer on that either. So the response I got was basically literally a copy and paste from their website from the about section. And so, yeah.
And just for the context for the people listening, you know, what's happening in Kenya right now is extremely related to two things: to Haiti and what's going on in Haiti right now, and with the U.S. Essentially forcing Kenya to strike IMF deal, which gutted, basically forcing austerity onto Kenyans. The Kenyan conditions suffering because there's leadership that is more attuned to the needs of the US than actual Kenyans, while at the same time sending hundreds of Kenyan police to occupy their African brothers in Haiti. Which, by the way, in Haiti, the Haitian government has now began using US manufactured drones on Haitians. And in the last 3 weeks, 300 Haitian alleged gang members, which we know that's not the case, have been killed by drone strikes, actually, in Haiti, initiated by the fake Haitian government. And so for someone like Khalees to even think about using this Black Panther imagery and slogan, and you don't have one word to say about the political situation that you're benefiting from, I think that context just adds an extra layer of kind of like, it's very in your face, on the nose, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, just, yeah. I don't, you know.
But it's the same thing, right? Like, let's slap a logo on a t-shirt. We'll bring some food in and do some videos and pretend like what we're doing is a good thing. And in the end, she just want to make sure she can keep making money, right?
So if I can show you what I got sent this to me yesterday by one of my 00 African homeboys, right?
And real quick, let's
go ahead.
also not forget that ICE is sending immigrants to Kenya because they made a deal, right? So there's there are all these layers on top of layers on top of layers of imperialism and capitalism working against Black people, and here she is, like, shucking and jiving, you know, like. Does she have videos of them drinking milkshakes? Like what? Like I can't.
Oh wow! So a few minutes ago, Musa asked us to consider, you know, image-wise, symbolically, what if we replace Khalees with a priest, right? So I'm going to ask you all in this next video to do something similar intellectually or cognitively, whatever. Consider, instead of a Pepsi rebrand is healthy, consider this in terms of what we're talking about here: the rebranding of Ture, of Fanon, of the Black Panther Party symbol. And as my buddy suggested, I think there is some overlap here with what this guy is doing.
Rebrand anything to make it sound healthy. And to prove it, I'm going to rebrand Pepsi to sound healthy. I'm just going to rebrand regular Pepsi for this one, and I'm going to use the skinny can because I like the aesthetic of it a little bit more. Changing up the colors a little bit, I'm going to start with a solid black can. I'll put the Pepsi logo front and center because you have to. I gotta find a unique angle to make this one sound healthy, so I'm gonna go the hydration route because the main ingredient in Pepsi is carbonated water. So I'm gonna call this Pepsi Hydrate Plus. The plus having no meaning at all, it just makes it sound better. I guess it could be like plus flavor, I guess. Pepsi
Like
does use
black
natural
capitalism?
flavor, so I'll add naturally flavored on there. And then I'm also gonna add 100% plant-based because that's true too. Since the main ingredient is water, I'm gonna emphasize that on the bottom, saying main ingredient always water. And instead of just being soda, I'm gonna call this premium sparkling cola. At the top, I'll add smooth taste and clean energy, and then below that, a few more call outs. We'll go with fat-free, gluten-free, and low sodium. And the plain black can is cool, but we need to do a little bit more. I'm gonna add some blue elements to this to really accentuate the water, and I will put the Pepsi logo in a water drop. And just like that, telling no lies at all, we've got healthy, hydrating Pepsi.
I think there are a lot of overlaps there.
That's a good thread, Jared. That's actually a really good thread. And
It
what
really is.
you know, I saw someone in the chat was like, it's just Khalees. Who cares? It's just Khalees. We're not sitting here saying it is bad to feed African children. Like,
That's not the message.
let's make sure we can. But what we're saying is that act and the sort of nonprofit, you know, there's a neoliberal, neocolonial, and nonprofit apparatus around this act, to where the feeding of African children is actually not the end goal, is not the objective, and it is running cover for something much more sinister. And for those of us, you know, like us on this call, who are not just online leftists, who are actually in these streets engaging with people, we can see what Khalees is doing in Kenya is what Jay-Z is doing in Brooklyn, is what Killer Mike is doing in Atlanta, right? I'm trying to think of a West Coast rapper to extend the analogy. And Snoop, what Snoop is doing in Cali. So, you know, what we have to have is a sophisticated analysis of what people claiming to represent us and our politics are doing in their actions, right? Like that's where we're at. And so I love that you brought up that Pepsi rebrand. There's another account that redesigned, is a graphic designer who redesigns posters for different shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, and does the same thing. It's like, this is a horribly designed promotional poster. Let me redesign it. Anyways.
Oh, please share that at some point. When
I got you.
You know, I'd like to, yeah.
And since the person in the chat that I just blocked personally is, I like just made it clear that they don't even know who Khalees is, because the reason I specifically said Milkshake is because it was one of her top fucking selling songs, Jackass. So
my bad, I'm missing stuff. I got that reference, but I'm missing what I'm apparently missing stuff in the chat.
Oh, she made fun of them. She said, "Give her Milkshake." There was a reason that I picked that specifically, Jackass. So.
But I mean, it is to both of your points. What I like about that video is that she is, like he said, he's rebranding it without telling any lies.
Right.
So she is actually feeding children. We agree that feeding children is actually a good thing. There's no lie in that. The lie, to the extent that there is one, is in what you just, how you just Musa laid it out, is in what it is meant to mask, falsely take claim of. Again, I would be less offended if she wasn't using the Panthers, if she wasn't using Malcolm X in the drop, like if she was just like, look, I'm doing the best I can, I'm chilling, I'm, you know, I'm gonna feed some children.
And also like the keying on the word revolutionary, when you are literally living in a place where the country you came from to go live there is stealing the resources, killing the people, using the people to send to other places to kill other Black people. Like this whole thing is like, what are we talking about right now?
but let me take it even one step further, referring to our conversation on Saturday about neocolonial capture and the need to extend Glenn Ford's Black misleadership class from just a political class to a celebrity class. Khalees is very public about the fact that her children are not going to a Kenyan school, right? Her children only see Kenyan children when they're playing in the front yard or whatever she said. And she's using AI to teach her kids. They're on an online AI school. Well, what a lot of people don't know is the input factor of artificial intelligence is you have to manually input the data into AI. These large language models don't just auto scrape, different internet databases. And in fact, oftentimes it's Kenyan workers making less than $1 an hour who have reported instances of PTSD because they're spending 15 hours a day online going through the worst parts of the internet to decipher what can and cannot be on these AI language models, right? And so a worker in the US might get $30 an hour for doing this work. Workers in Kenya have been trying to speak out because they're in these AI centers training language models for suppressed wages. And so it really comes full circle when you not only think about what she is publicly doing, but what she has said she's doing in her private life. And that's not, I'm not in her life. I'm not trying to morally judge her, but it's like, the issue is a capitalist logic in 360 degrees.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And AI school in and of itself is crazy. It's crazy.
It's bananas.
But the fact that you do the AI school, your children are not in a Kenyan school. You're not giving money to the local public Kenyan schools. And then on top of that, you're using the very software that is exploiting local Kenyans. Like, it's bananas.
And destroying the air, because we've learned very recently, like these data centers are dangerous. This is dangerous business we have going on with these, these facilities. And it's like everywhere.
Yeah, now that I didn't even really think of it that fully. But I mean, I'm even just listening to you now. Like she could have, infused funds to schools and hired teachers and tutors and created employ. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. And so again, my thing, much like what has been said, I'm all pettiness and jokes aside, it's not to point at the individual. It's to point at these structures that induce this, invite this, that encourage this, that create the rebranding of it all. So that it makes it more difficult for us to identify what is actually revolutionary. And it was really disturbing to me to see two people, one of whom I really was building with, once upon a time. Like, and you're in the chat and her comments like, go on, Queen, and all that kind. And I'm like, oh, wow.
But this is listen. This is what we're. This is the part of it. I don't know how to get us all out of the matrix. Like this shit is insidious, and everywhere I turn around, you have someone else selling people something based on utter nonsense, convincing them that the reason they can't be happy is because they aren't working hard enough to make enough money to be like me. Like it is the wildest circular space like ever. And it's every place I turn, there's someone else. So part of the reason, I'm gonna shift real quick and we can shift back before we move on, before we talk about this, but I want to make sure I bring it up because we didn't get to it on Saturday. I keep seeing all these notifications about Mamdani, who just won the Musa already know who just won the primary in New York City, right? Ranked choice voting, whatever. And so everyone's really excited about Mamdani. All right, correction, not everyone, because I certainly as hell am not. And as a native
Renee, can I interrupt real quick?
I feel like I can say that. No, go ahead.
Please, because I don't want to lose this thought, and I want to tie this off real quick before that you said you don't know how to get us out of the matrix. And I just wanted to bring it back quickly to the point about where we all started with this, with Fanon and Ture and Lumumba. And their argument was, and the way I would interpret their argument to that point would be, if the matrix exists, there is no getting out of it. There can't be a matrix. That's how I interpret their work. And then, so I just wanted to make that point. And now, please, and because it will continue to produce Mamdanis.
Right. And that's the end goal, is to always put in place a person who can distract you enough from your reality and give you enough of an idea of a crumb of a thing that might be helpful for you sometime in the future, that you forget that they're all part of the same system that is causing you to have the problem you are trying to exist through in the moment, right? And so, you know, like I was getting text messages from people like, aren't you excited? And I was like, hell fucking no, I'm not excited. Why on earth would I be excited about a person who has been endorsed by AOC and Bernie Sanders, the two biggest socialist democratic sellouts in existence right now? Because the minute you get that endorsement, what that tells me is you are already lying in tow. And I can't, like, even this whole, like, look, all of the Democratic, the heavy hands are coming for him. You think they don't know that y'all are watching that, right? It's like, to me, it's all part of the game, right? If they're all talking bad about Mamdani and doing the thing, whatever, you might actually be convinced that he's going to go in there and shake shit up. He ain't shaking shit up. There's no shot he's going to shake shit up. Now, listen, my crystal ball broke. So is there a possibility that he'll get in there and actually do something? I guess, right? And I'll happily eat my words if that happens. But I'm telling y'all, that shit ain't happening, because he is on target. Like, the whole plan with the Democratic Party right now is to remind people that they are better than the Republicans. That's it. That's all they've got, right? So right now, that's their whole thing. We're just going to remind everybody that we're better than the Republicans, and we'll ride through these next 3.5 years, reminding people that we're better than the Republicans. So when it comes down to 2028, and elections come back, and I know some people say there won't be any more elections and whatever, like, so that they can say, see, look how crazy things have been. We've been telling y'all this whole time we're better than them. And they're just going to suck everybody back in. That's the plan.
Well, I think too, okay, can I book in the Khalees talk actually real quick? Because I have pulled up this,
please.
I pulled up a quote from Ture that I think speaks to this very perfectly. In the book Black Power, he's talking about when Thurgood Marshall, who in school were taught to love and adore, and all the, the former Supreme Court, when he was replaced by a conservative Black person, Ture is talking about how many Black liberals didn't want to publicly criticize the conservative Black person because it was a Black face in a high place, and they felt to criticize him was to criticize themselves. And he's actually Ture is criticizing Black Power, and he says that there was an issue with Black Power because, and I'm quoting here, Black Power clearly states that it does not mean merely putting Black faces into office, because Black visibility is not Black power. The failure to make this more explicit has led to unfortunate consequences. One definite result has been to open the way for those in the Black community who would seize the opportunity to advance themselves solely on the basis of race. They show no indication of commitment to either the left or the right. They're simply hustlers using their race as cover for their personal individual gains, knowing that they can always use the charge of racism against those who would oppose them. In all candor, Black Power opened that door and invited such opportunists in without any discernible way to evaluate their commitment or their talent. So I just want to say, Ture, the ever prophetic Ture, said it is, and he goes on, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It is the way you can lack ideological clarity is itself an intentional weapon that is used by the hustlers, by the grifters. And they're actually, in fact, using the idea of Black power to push the idea that Black visibility is power. I know I'm not telling y'all nothing new. I know this is Jared, this your whole bag, but I think we really, like Chidima just said, louder for the people in the back.
We might need to put that on a shirt.
And then, to the Mamdani point, which is also low-key very connected, this not only legitimizes Mamdani and democratic socialism as this kind of reformist ideology, it in turn dialectically legitimizes the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
It legitimizes the AOCs, the Bernie Sanders, the people who very begrudgingly, they didn't even want to endorse him, but they very begrudgingly do towards the, right before victory. So it also re-legitimizes ardent Zionists. I mean, Bernie Sanders is a Zionist to the core, right? And so when Mamdani is asked, does Israel have a right to exist? And he says, yes, of course, as a state with democratic rights for all, blah, blah, blah. This is a really intentional, to me, muddling of the ideology and the politics. And anti-Zionism has been very, very clear ideologically. No, Israel does not have a right to exist. And it's okay to say that exact sentence out loud. And so I feel like we're in the matrix in the sense that this is AOC all over again. This is Bernie 2016, Bernie 2020. I was unpopular then. I'm going to be unpopular now when I say I hope Mamdani gets in there. There's also still Adams. There is Cuomo, who's talking about maybe I'll just run independent. And
not maybe. He is running independent. He's on the ballot. He's on the ballot as an independent.
So when Amilcar Cabral says, tell no lies, claim no easy victories, I think a lot of people around this campaign are claiming easy victories and telling lies. Do I hope some of what Mamdani is proposing gets passed? Of course. I want all Africans in New York to live dignified and resourced lives. But I also am not going to delude myself into this revolutionary fever pitch that some people seem to be living in.
Right. And the reality of democratic socialism is it is not socialism. It is an increase in government support of programs that would not need to exist if you had actual socialism. Like, let's just be very, very clear on the difference. And so if you persist in this idea that like, oh, well, he's going to bring socialism, he's not, because that is not what democratic socialism is, period.
But it's also that he's doing it within a party that's not going to let him even do the democratic socialism thing. So it's not even like and then to the points we've all been making, it's another, because what I've hated most about Bernie's presence is that it becomes a rebrand of socialism. Like he never properly advocated for what socialism is. And so far, when I see Mamdani giving his he's very skilled at these interviews. Like he is I watched the Breakfast Club joint he did. I watched the MSNBC. Like he is very good. But one thing he doesn't do is advocate for what socialism actually would be. He doesn't even make the point, Renee, that you just made. So this is not, it doesn't become some advance towards expanding the consciousness of how people understand socialism and how it would actually, work and be beneficial, which is why, again, I keep saying we need to revisit our collective investigation of socialist reconstruction, because it just gives some practical, this is what a society not too radically different from where we are today would look like. I mean, in terms of, not radically different, but, in terms of where we are, if this is the starting point, that is like a very logical next set of steps. Yeah, go ahead.
Might I also add, this is the perfect year to not only read Socialist Reconstruction, but The Great Black Reconstruction by W.E.B. Du Bois, to also get a sense and understanding of, for Africans and Black people in this country, what a politics can look like during a reconstructive period. But, I think if I were to sit down with Mamdani one-on-one, I'm sure we would agree on a lot. I'm sure we would have a lot in common. I'm sure there would be I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. His middle name comes from Kwame Nkrumah, I recently learned. Shout out Kwame Nkrumah. But I think what people what hurts me and makes me kind of sad is like we can't fall for the same tricks every time. And I think, of course, like if I was in New York, I would probably vote for the guy, of course, right? Like, but would that same party that he is in lend critical support to a Claudia de la Cruz to make sure a Republican doesn't get in office? What would his party, the structure around him, both the Democratic Party and perhaps the DSA too. Who knows? What would they think of the Jackson Kush plan of Chokwe Lumumba in Jackson, right? And I think if we start to make comparisons to actual radical approaches to electoralism throughout history, like Cooperation Jackson, there's a lot of really, really stark key differences. New York City to Jackson, Mississippi is not a one-to-one comparison by any means, but it's the ideological and political context and approach that the folks in Cooperation Jackson and Chokwe Lumumba took. And so, you know, I think we should be critical of the things like, I'm gonna recall back to you, Jared, how things make us feel, right? If something can make you feel a certain way, feel a certain emotion, you actually need to examine why you're feeling that and what that does to kind of disengage your critical thinking. And then the very last point, because you mentioned socialism, we have now at this point had about 12 years or so of Bernie Sanders mainstreaming a very particular kind of definition of socialism. And the confusion around what socialism means and looks like could not be greater. The confusion could not be larger. We are in a deeply uneducated, I mean, the average reading level in the US is 6th grade reading level for US adults. And we actually do need ideological clarity and very specific clarity around terms like socialism. Otherwise, you believe Bernie Sanders, who voted in 1992 to extradite Assad Shakur from Cuba, is a socialist. So I'll leave it at that.
He sure did. I keep forgetting that in all of my hate.
I can't let no one forget that.
I appreciate it because I don't know. There's no good reason for me forgetting. That's ridiculous. That should be at the top of the list. How dare he? He should never be forgiven. Did he ever apologize for that? Did he even offer up some bullshit ass apology for that?
He did. He wrote an apology and it was very bullshit. And at the time,
I don't accept it.
At the time in 92, Black organizers departed from him. Not even just because of his vote, but actually because of his apology, how it was written. And so there's a lot of history there.
Yeah. And I also want to encourage people to really, like, I feel like part of the problem with a lot of politicians and people jump on board is like, they read the headline of the things that people are offering and they don't take the time to like really consider, right? Like you're going to get free buses with Mandami, but not free trains. Like which one is used more?
Oh, damn.
Right? Which one gets you across the entire city with one payment? It's not a like this idea that like, oh, he's going to do all the things, right? He's talking about public safety, but not reducing money to the NYPD, right? But he's gonna create a new thing to help the community watch what NYPD does, as if that's ever helped anything, right? He's talking about affordable housing, but not to make the already however many millions of empty apartments available to people at a reasonable, but to build more housing, because what New York City needs is more fucking buildings, right? Like, can we just, like, I just want people sometimes to like be logical about things. And it's fine if you want to support him because you figure the crumbs he's going to give are better than getting whatever you know, whatever things you're not going to get from anyone else. Like, okay, that's fine. But at the same time, like we have to be very, very cautious about what things you champion without understanding the reality of things, right? Like if you're going to do free transportation, I'd be way more on board with free transportation than just free buses, right? Because the buses do not commute as many people as the trains do, period. They just do not.
I'm glad you brought all this up. What happened to that whole argument from years ago that I thought would be a good liberal thing to pick up? That the whole, what is it, like a maybe even a 1/10 of a penny tax per stock trade in New York?
Yep.
Like
I mean, he is talking about a 1% for the corporations, taxing corporations. But I don't think he's talking about, if I remember correctly, it was not about the stock market.
Because my thing is, because what I remember liking about that argument was that it would fund everything. you know, you should be able to fund, to your point, all the trains. Like everybody's traveling for free or, you know, all residents travel for free in New York or whatever. And probably more. Like, I mean, you know, the amount of stocks get traded, if you're doing even a portion of a penny per trade, I mean, I would think there's going to be probably billions. I don't know. It seems like endless amounts of money that you could then easily say, without going into the whole thing, we're going to, you know, defund the police, which he struggled with. He was like, I'm not defunding the police. I'm just, in fact, no. I forgot exactly, but I was like, that's slick, my guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, my personal approach, I think there are good aspects and bad aspects. I think there are outright good and outright bad in the policies that he has proposed, and I give him critical support. I would like for him to be in office compared to an Adams, a Cuomo, the 7 other guys behind him, you know, who are all over the place. So I think the idea that we're just simply have criticisms does not mean we're sitting here saying we want New Yorkers to suffer. We'd rather you have 8 years of Cuomo and whatever, right? But even to your point about no,
because we got to defend feeding children. Like, we're not saying don't feed. Like, we got to protect it. Like we're not.
I can't even. People are just so just dumb.
But even
no one's saying that.
Even
sorry.
No. I mean, to your point about the police, and then our earlier conversation about Zionism, he has proposed, right, a anti-Semitism, countering anti-Semitism kind of hate crimes booster package, essentially. But we have lots and lots and lots of data and studies to show that giving cities more money for anti-hate crimes while not defunding the police just gives more money to the police, right? Right. If you're going to create anti-Semitism task force, who is receiving that money? And then what do they do with that money? It's the police. And so to quote Ajamu Baraka, we need to be serious, Africans, right? Like, we need to be serious, and also we need to be sober in our analysis. And so I love that the guy has the Kwame Nkrumah middle name, of course, but if his, the defund the police question that he stumbled greatly on, to me, is one of the most important, because the NYPD is literally a standing military.
Military.
Larger, not only just a larger budget, but a larger number than many literal standing militaries around the world.
I was about to say greater in number and in cost than many military forces across the world.
Exactly. And so, and we have seen candidates popping up in places like Dearborn, Michigan, and others who are saying, I was inspired to run by Mamdani, and they have a very similar DSA kind of politics. And I'm like, what happens is the technology of counterinsurgency, both consciously and subconsciously, it develops alongside politics, right? It becomes more sophisticated. And I feel as though that's what we're witnessing. Whereas you had an AOC, people forget, when AOC ran, she used thinly veiled anti-imperialist language that got a lot of the left excited. People like me were called haters for not falling for it. 24 hours after she was elected, she removed the foreign policy section from her website completely.
I remember that. Yeah,
removed it. And so, like, we have to just be really sober and honest about, one, who these people are, and then two, the machine they're willingly entering in within this Democratic Party.
Right. And that's the part of it. Like, I really want people to understand, it is not that I don't think buses can be free. One, I don't think he can do it if he wins. It's going to be problematic. That all said, the fact that like everything is limited by the reality of the Democratic Party, by the reality of what is happening in New York City. So what I am imploring people to do, like, if you want to support the dude, you want to vote for him, whatever, like whatever. Like, I don't live in New York City anymore. I'm not voting there anyway. It's really not like, I don't have a say when all is said and done. But it is important that people understand that you cannot just jump up and down and be like, oh, this dude, like, he's going to put in all these socialist strategies and da-da-da-da-da. Like, pay attention, because as you are championing this person as a socialist, right, you are missing that he is not a socialist. And you are forgetting about all the other democratic socialists who got in there, and then did nothing that they promised they were going to do, because they are part of the Democratic Party. So we can, like, you have to be, and I know people want to, like, I feel bad. Like, I have a friend who all the time is like, Renee, you will ruin a fucking rainbow. Like, you come all the time and you just fuck my life up when you come back with your analysis on stuff. Sorry, Chuck. Chuck yells at me all the time. Chuck Modiano, he'd be like, yo, you just be ruining shit, Renee. But like, I can't.
Did I freeze?
I think you did, because I can still hear you. No, you're not frozen anymore.
Oh, okay.
But like, it's just like, you all need it. It's important that people not be fooled. That's all I'm saying. Like, you could be excited because the buses are going to be free. Maybe you could be excited because, like, he said free Palestine. Like, you could be excited about all these surface things. But when he gets in, if he is a disappointment, because he is bound to be a disappointment, he is a fucking Democrat. He is bound to be a disappointment. You can't, this is the reality of the situation. Sorry, Musa, because I know you got to roll.
Yeah, I just, I think there's a recent and relevant example, right? Cop City struggle took place in Atlanta. There were very far more radical elements of that struggle that were literally sabotaging construction equipment, burning different things, et cetera, et cetera. There's very liberal approaches that were geared around voting. And then somewhere in the middle was something I think is representative of a Mamdani kind of politics, but was the ballot initiative, where they collected over 116,000 ballots from Atlanta residents saying they wanted a referendum to vote against Cop City. The issue was not the ballot in and of itself. It was that there was not sufficient organizing around it to organize that 116,000 people into an organizational structure that could leap into action once inevitably the system said, fuck your referendum. We're not doing no vote. No. So the issue isn't the referendum itself. It was the organizing around it, insufficiently moving those people into more radical, actual socialist politics. What I'm seeing with Mamdani is the same thing. Of course, I want you to knock on as many doors as possible and ask people, why don't you have free transportation? Why does Wall Street not pay taxes for operating in New York? Why do all the, I want this, there needs to be this push, this grassroots push. The issue is that those people are not organized into something more long-term, more serious, and more left of the Democratic Party. And unfortunately, being more outraged at the criticism than being outraged at the failures of what's taking place means that in 2 to 4 years, we're literally going to do this all over again. I would rather have some left-leaning Democrats who don't call themselves socialists, but who give you some good policies here and there, than people who are confusing and mudding the waters while sticking to the same script. So that's all.
No, I agree, and unfortunately, I gotta bounce too, because at this point, I'm just abusing. I'm becoming guilty of what we've been critical of. I'm abusing these histories and struggles to procrastinate against my own deadline, which is today. So I got, so I'm now taking advantage of the struggle. But since we on Saturday and even today paid tribute a little bit to Glenn Ford and Bruce Dixon, and shout out to Deculturation for the same that last week. I would want to end making a point that they taught me, that Mamdani is another version of what they warned back in the day of Obama. And one of the core features of their critique that I think a lot of us lose sight of is the simple one that we didn't produce him. The movement didn't produce Mamdani. As he has said himself, he has come out of a long training ground from, Democratic Party training ground going back some years now. And just like Obama, these are not products of revolutionary organizations and movements looking to project elected representatives, blah, 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 blah. So that's just one more bit of evidence and a clue as to how we should approach and interpret this. Renee, you want any last word for this morning, and or Musa, any last word for this morning? I definitely appreciate you both joining me.
No, just thank you, and thank you, Musa. I'm glad we got to this because I was struggling.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. As always, I'm glad to be in conversation with y'all. Some of the future conversations being talked about in email. Folks who want to do a full hour-long deep dive on Kwame Ture can tune into WRFG tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you're not in Atlanta, because in Atlanta it's 89.3, but if you're anywhere else, you can just go to WRFG.org. WRFG.org. Tonight, 7 to 8 p.m., we're doing a whole hour on the great Kwame Ture.
That's what's up. Very good. All right, good people. Thanks to you both. Thanks to the Undefeated Chat. Thanks to Brother Zizwe, and to everybody. Peace. Only if you're willing to fight for it. As Fred Hampton used to say, happy belated birthday to Kwame Ture, and happy 100 years on for Malcolm, Lumumba, Fanon, Robert Williams, and anyone else I'm forgetting. Thanks, everybody. Catch you next time here at...
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.
I mix what I like.